At the tender age of 7, Princess Charlotte had already perfected the art of royal poise with her flawless curtsy, graceful wave, and composed smile reflecting her upbringing. However, on that unforgettable day at the Wellington Arch, something truly remarkable occurred. As millions of onlookers observed, the young princess's carefully maintained demeanor faltered, revealing an emotional moment that moved hearts across the globe. What could have caused her to shed tears? The answer lies in a secret gift, a hidden musical legacy, and a great-grandmother's final act of love that would forever change the monarchy. Few are aware that behind the grand doors of Buckingham Palace, in a room rarely seen by visitors, sat an antique Steinway piano, holding more secrets than the crown jewels. It was in this room that Queen Elizabeth II spent countless evenings teaching young Charlotte the delicate art of piano playing, a tradition kept hidden from the public until that fateful day. The story began when Charlotte discovered a carefully wrapped package on her 7th birthday. Inside was a delicate music box crafted from burnished silver, adorned with tiny horseshoes symbolizing their shared love of horses. But this was no ordinary music box. When opened, it played a haunting melody composed by the Queen herself, a lullaby she had often played for Charlotte during their private lessons. On the day of the memorial service, Charlotte wore 2 precious gifts from her great-grandmother: the horseshoe brooch, which caught the attention of many, and beneath her collar, the silver music box, delicately suspended on a chain. What the cameras didn't capture, what no one could have anticipated, was how the grand organ at Wellington Arch began to play the first few notes of that very same lullaby, a final gift arranged by the Queen before her passing. As the notes filled the hall, something extraordinary occurred. Palace insiders later revealed that, as young Charlotte maintained her composure throughout numerous public appearances, she suddenly recognized the melody. Her hand instinctively reached for the music box beneath her collar. In that moment, the wall between public duty and private emotion began to crumble. The royal photographer who captured Charlotte's first year didn't know about the music box, the piano lessons, or the countless hours spent with her great-grandmother, learning not just music, but also lessons that would shape her future. All he knew was that he had witnessed something unprecedented, a moment of pure, unguarded emotion that would change the world's perception of the royal family. But here's where the story takes a surprising turn. As Charlotte's tears captured the attention of millions around the world, something remarkable happened in the orchestra pit. The musician entrusted with playing the Queen's lullaby later shared that his sheet music had mysteriously vanished just before the performance. Yet, the melody played on, note for note, as if guided by an invisible hand. The Queen's lady-in-waiting later revealed that the Queen had secretly recorded herself playing the lullaby, knowing it would be her final gift to Charlotte. She arranged for the recording to be played through the hall speaker system at precisely that moment, ensuring that even after her passing, she could offer one last moment of comfort to her beloved great-granddaughter. What began as a private display of emotion quickly sparked a chain reaction throughout the hall. As Charlotte's tears flowed freely, others found themselves moved not by the loss of a queen, but by the sight of a young girl mourning her great-grandmother. Even the usually stoic palace guards were seen discreetly wiping away their tears, though they would never admit it in their official reports. In the days that followed, the story of the mysterious melody spread. Music scholars tried to transcribe it, royal watchers searched for its meaning, and young royals across Europe found themselves relating to Charlotte in ways they never expected. However, the full truth about that day, the piano lessons, and the music box, remained known only to a select few until now. No one could have anticipated how that moment would ripple through centuries of royal protocol, challenging the very foundations of how young royals were expected to behave in public. As Charlotte's tears dried and the final notes of her great-grandmother's lullaby faded away, more questions arose. What other secrets lay hidden behind the young princess's composed exterior? And how did the musical connection between grandmother and great-granddaughter reveal itself in the final months they spent together at Kensington Palace? Within the palace walls, Charlotte navigated 2 distinct worlds. Behind the scenes, Princess Kate transformed a forgotten wing of the palace into a space called the Normality Nook, where tiaras met teddy bears and royal protocol bowed to childhood whimsy. Here, Charlotte kept her most treasured possessions, common toys gifted by the public during royal walkabouts. She particularly cherished a simple wooden dollhouse placed next to a priceless 18th-century miniature palace that had belonged to Queen Mary. This contrast spoke volumes about her unique childhood. Palace staff observed how Charlotte effortlessly switched between these 2 worlds. At state events, she demonstrated impeccable posture, perfected through hours of practice, yet moments after the cameras turned away, she would often be found twirling Perhaps most intriguing was her secret ritual. Before every public appearance, she would spend exactly 7 minutes in the Normality Nook playing with her toys, a tradition that helped her remember she could be both a princess and a child. As the memorial service reached its most solemn moment, an extraordinary sequence of events unfolded beneath the Wellington Arch. The first sign of something unprecedented came from Charlotte's personal protection officer, who noticed her fingers tracing something beneath her collar. Tom Parker, the royal photographer, recalled how time seemed to slow down. Through his lens, he saw subtle changes in Charlotte's demeanor, a tremor in her hands and a softening around her eyes that no royal training could conceal. But what truly broke protocol came next. As Charlotte's composure wavered, Guard James Mitchell made a decision that would later spark debate in the highest circles of palace authority. He reached into his uniform pocket and quietly offered Charlotte his handkerchief, first time in centuries that a guard had interacted directly with a royal during a ceremonial duty. This simple act of humanity sparked quiet support throughout the crowd. As Charlotte's tears flowed, the atmosphere of the ceremony shifted. Foreign dignitaries, trained in centuries of protocol, found themselves caught between tradition and compassion. The Japanese ambassador's wife later described how she instinctively stepped forward to comfort Charlotte, only to be surprised when no one stopped her, a subtle shift in the invisible barriers that typically surrounded young royals. In those 3 minutes, the usual whispers about royal protocol gave way to murmurs of empathy. Young royals from other nations, standing rigid in their formal attire, visibly relaxed their postures in solidarity. What happened beneath the Wellington Arch that day did more than challenge tradition, it rewrote it. In the months that followed, a subtle but significant shift occurred in how young royals were permitted to express themselves during formal occasions. As these changes took root within the palace, attention turned to Prince George, who had watched his sister's vulnerability with an intensity that puzzled many observers. His reaction, and the profound impact it would have on their relationship, soon became apparent. The change began with a leather-bound journal discovered by palace housekeeping, filled with sketches that documented George's own struggles with royal expectations. One drawing depicted Charlotte at the memorial service, with a mirror image of himself beside her, both with tears. Palace sources revealed that George had secretly collected newspaper clippings about his sister's emotional display, not out of rivalry, but with deep admiration. His private tutor noticed a shift in his demeanor during lessons on royal history. Instead of focusing solely on protocol, George began asking about the human side of these stories. The siblings' bond grew stronger through their shared routines. The royal children's breakfast room, once a place of formality, became a sanctuary where George and Charlotte developed their own secret language of support. George would position himself between his sister and visiting dignitaries, creating space for her to step out of the spotlight if needed. Perhaps the most telling change came during their joint appearances at royal functions. Gone were the subtle competitions. Instead, observers noted how George developed a system of hand signals with Charlotte. A gentle tap on the wrist meant "I see you struggling," while a soft brush of the elbow signaled "it's okay to feel." Their private art teacher shared a moving story of a joint painting session, where George requested they work on a single canvas together. The result was an artwork showing two young figures standing strong together, their crowns tilted and hands clasped in unity. This transformation extended beyond the palace walls. At a garden party at Windsor Castle, George broke tradition by requesting that young guests sit with their siblings, not by rank. This small but significant change reflected his growing understanding that strength could be found in family bonds. George also began keeping a small collection of items in his coat pocket during public events: a spare handkerchief, a photograph of their private moments, and a courage stone, a smooth pebble from the beach where he and Charlotte had spent a rare, carefree afternoon. These items served as tangible reminders of their shared humanity beyond their royal titles. The evolving relationship between the siblings caught the attention of child development experts, who noted how their public dynamic was reshaping expectations for young royals. Their former nanny revealed how George had even changed his bedtime routine. Instead of practicing his royal wave, as tradition dictated, he would spend quiet moments reflecting on his connection with his sister.